Hello, everybody. Welcome to Just for Men Africa. And today on the show, we have lost George Queno, all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. George is a celebrity photographer in South Africa. He's photographed a lot of stars and celebrities in South Africa. His clients range from Canada to America, and he'll be talking to us about how he got into the photography industry in South Africa. So stick around, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to Just for Men Africa. And we have lost George. George, welcome to Just for Men Africa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, George. All right, George, before we get into photography and how you got started, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your childhood, and how you migrated to South Africa?
Oh well, I was born in Ghana in Takoradi. My dad, my family moved here when I was 17, but my dad came here a long time ago and the family joined him here later. So this is where in South Africa, that's where I finished my high schooling and I finished my tertiary education. And then 2004, I immigrated to Toronto, Canada with my ex-wife. My ex-wife is Canadian, so that's why I lived in Canada for about 17 years. And I relocated back to South Africa in 2019.
So could you tell us, what was it like living in South Africa and, away from Ghana?
I came when I was 16, so I would say I was still pretty young. And, assimilation in the culture was a bit different. Trying to learn the local language, especially in high school where it was compulsory to pass with 2 languages in distinction to go into a tertiary education. So I had to get a special exemption to write the exams in Afrikaans, but not to pass it because of I only had 3 years when I immigrated to go into university. But other than that, it's been a very adventurous journey. And I've been enjoying my stay in the country so far. The country has its own issues. Sometimes you may hear some, snippets of xenophobia and everything in between. But I would say the general population in this country, everybody is lovely and friendly and relatively, as you can see, I've established myself here pretty well and I'm doing okay.
Could you tell us, how did you get into photography? Was this something you had planned to do, or you just accidentally stumbled onto it?
Yeah, photography fell on my lap, I would say. I didn't go to school for it. It used to be a hobby when I was in high school. So one of my uncles, with my dad's closest friends, that I used to call an uncle, owned a photography studio in a small town that I grew up in. But it was mostly what you may call it, a film processing place. So after school, I'll go there and then help out. And, but then I went to Canada in 2004, and I struggled to find a well-paid job. I wasn't happy with, I used to work in corporate and I wasn't really happy. So eventually I made a decision to transition to photography to try to pursue my passion as my full-time career. And it's been 17 years and I haven't looked back. So yeah, it's been a very discovery journey for me.
So could you tell us, do you remember your first camera, your first client?
I would say my first camera that I had was an analog. It was one of those film cameras. And that was years ago. But when I decided to transition into professional photography, I had a Konica Minolta camera. If you remember, and then Sony bought out Konica. So my first digital DSLR was a Sony Alpha A100, which was the first ever digital camera that Sony brought out. So you can imagine at that time, the resolution wasn't that great, but it worked. So yeah, Sony was my first ever digital camera that I ever owned. Now I'm a Canon. I shoot mostly Canon. Yeah. My first client, I would say my first client was a friend. Was a was a friend who kind of trusted me and said, okay, George, I see you are doing this, I have an album EP coming up, he was a musician. I have an EP coming up. I need some pictures to go along with it. Will you have to? And then, yeah, I don't even remember if I charged him for it, but it was a minimal pay to cover my expenses. But yeah, that was my first client. I remember my first client was a friend.
Being a photographer, could you tell us some of the challenges you've encountered, growing it as a business, as a full-time business in South Africa?
Well, the challenge is for me, it's about, in this industry now that, most people say it's very saturated. It's a saturated market. And for you to stand out, you have to do something different than what everybody else is doing. And you have to constantly put your work out there. So in my experience, like the challenge has been trying to really educate the client that, okay, I charge this price, this premium price because of ABCD. And my ABCD is not the same as, Tom, Dick, and Harry across the street. It's work. I give value. This is what you get. So yeah, I've been trying to really educating my client by ways of sharing my videos, whether it's me talking or me behind the scenes, or just, going to event and really trying to network, because it's all about relationship as well. If somebody doesn't trust you, they don't know you, in their mind, you don't exist, therefore you don't get hired. So I try to network and create a meaningful connection with people. And that's how I get my clientele.
All right, so talking about charging a premium price, when did you feel that it was necessary to start upgrading your price from the regular price which you started with, and you said let's start charging a premium price?
I think, when in any business, I think when you get to a stage where you are getting really, really busy, right? You're getting extremely busy that you don't have time to even deliver to your clientele. And that's a sure sign that you are not charging enough. Right. So I have come to the realization that not everybody will be your client. And your clientele will pay your price because they believe in your service. So for me, it took a lot of learning, and courage for me to get to this point where I decided to say, okay, this is what I charge for ABC, and this is my price, and I stick to it. And most of my discerning clients don't have any issue with my pricing. In one of those instances where I may get once in a while get a client who try to push back, try to make me justify my price, then I know that they are not for me. I don't try to win them over, because if they value the service, they will know what it is. They won't even question the price.
I agree. But you mentioned something really interesting that if I'm quoting exactly what you said, that you get so busy, you don't have time to even deliver to your clients, and that means that you're not charging enough. But somebody will say that if you're really busy, it means that people trust your work, and that what makes you busy. Not necessarily that you're not charging enough.
Yeah, that's also true. That's also true. But for me to be able to say, okay, I don't want to accept any or take on every client that walks through the door or that comes through the inquiry, because as a creative, sometimes you need time to also be able to do some creative work besides what you are being paid to do. Most of my clients, especially when I'm shooting for advertising or billboard, or I'm working with an advertising agency, they come with a specific brief that I have to adhere to. I cannot deviate in terms of creativity, deviate from what they want. Oftentimes, I will be a little bit creative and they will end up and liking it, besides the brief. But what I find more fulfilling is doing my own personal creative work. And I will not find that time to do the personal creative work if I'm constantly busy, taking on every single job that comes on. Then we tend to lose as a creative, you lose that creative edge because you're always focusing on delivering something for the client. So I think me setting that premium price was sort of, it really encourages or attracts the clients that really, really want to work with me. Of course, I mean, I don't charge too much, but I think my price is a little bit, I'll say 10%, between 10% and 15% higher than what the average photographer may be charging in the city of Johannesburg or the country altogether. But it's still affordable for most people.
All right. So could you tell us, when did you break international and start doing work outside South Africa?
For me, it's not something that I really sought to do, but it happened so naturally by, I guess, on social media. Now that we have social media and the internet, the world, the international world is your market. I'm not defined by a specific market constraint, but, me putting my work out there and people noticing the work from, I get inquiries from agencies from Paris, and other European from Austria. I have clients in Austria, I have clients in Netherlands that I still do work for here in SA for them. So I think when they see the quality of the work, they say, okay, we think we can, contract with you with this project to serve us because we like the aesthetics of my work. So for me, it just came so naturally by putting my work out there in the interweb, so-called Instagram and LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Yeah, so they came naturally.
Talking about clients, could you give us a few of your clients you have worked with over the last 17 years?
I mean, I've worked with, mostly a lot of the editorial magazines in the US, Cosmopolitan, Women's Health Magazine, Men's Health Magazine. And then I've shot with some, Under Armour, Canada, Nike, Canada, shot for some record companies as well. And here in South Africa with KFC, Jack Daniels International, shot for Jack Daniels in the US and here in Kenya, Nigeria, even for campaigns. So yeah, they go far and wide in between. So this will be some of the short lists that I can give you right now. But yeah, they're all over.
So could you tell us what actually makes a great picture?
That's a difficult question. I think it's there's a lot of there are a lot of factors that plays into an image, creating an image. For me, when I see a captivating image, it could be the gaze, or in the eyes of the subject looking back at you, the expression, the mood. The expression could be sad, happy, melancholic, or anything in between. But when you take the image, it's hard to explain. When an image is speaking to you, and sometimes it could be the lighting or how the photographer processed the image, the post-production, how they kind of isolated, the light from the dark or, the hues in the image. So there's a whole lot of factors that plays into it. I'm not sure if you know what I mean. That plays, and sometimes it could be just the surrounding where you take a picture of an individual just by themselves, and then they're surrounded by, could be like, or emptiness or cluster of stuff. There's so many things that plays in it. But I think when you see I see a captivating image, or when I create a captivating image, I go, wow, I can't believe I did that. And sometimes it's again, when I say the connection between me and the subject I'm photographing, because when there's a good synergy, there's a feedback, warm connection with my subject, we tend to create far, far better images than when the person is very close off and they are very difficult to connect to, mentally and emotionally on set. But my job as a professional photographer is to try to connect with the subject, whether they're difficult or friendly. And, I've been on a set where I've been photographed somebody like a well-known international superstar, William Shatner, where I only had 3 minutes
What?
with this person. 3 minutes. Because, he was shooting, doing a production show, and they say, okay, he's a very busy set. So I went to the backstage, I set up a backdrop, called my assistant, tested my lights on him, and he showed up and he said, oh, okay, well, you have 2 minutes. They gave me 3 minutes, but he gave me 2 minutes. And I took probably less than a minute creating that image, and I took only 4 frames. And out of the 4 frames, they're able to use 2 of the images. So those are the challenges you have to create. You have to connect with your subject quick, as fast as possible, and to get the image out of from a subject for the client. So yeah, those are the challenges, but that's my job. That's what they pay me for, to get the best image out of any situation.
Wow, that's a remarkable story. AI seems to be taking over when it comes to photography. You're able to generate images online and stuff. As a photographer, are you worried about that?
No, I'm not worried about it. It's here to stay. And as a photographer and as an artist and a creative, it's my duty to understand it and incorporate it into my work. Because remember when digital cameras started coming out, there were a lot of resistance, with the old time photographers. Oh, we're going to lose our job to this, everybody who can use a camera. No, now look at it. Everybody is now, it's like we don't even use film anymore. I shoot film for my personal project. But yeah, so for me, we as humans, we tend to be afraid of things we don't know or understand, right? And I think that's where we are with AI. Most people are afraid. They are very, they're very hesitant, or they think that AI is going to take over their job. But I think if you understand it and you incorporate into the job, for me, sometimes I still use AI to change background or to change something in an image that I don't like. And it's more like, enhancing and improving my work than anything else. So yeah, the AI is here to stay, and I don't think it's going to take over the actual photography. It still remains to be seen, but right now I'm not shaking, or I'm not, I'm embracing it.
All right, George, as a round of the interview, could you tell us what's the future for George Studio and George Quino?
Well, there's still a lot that I'm about to roll up. I'm about to roll up a photography and creative podcast with a different twist. It's going to be a whole different setup than the normal podcast that you see out there. And I can't say much about it now, but yeah, I'm sure once it's rolled out, you will see. So and then I just opened the George Q Studio last October, and it's also poised to be one of the creative hubs where all the most of the videographers and photographers can utilize to create. It's a space that I rent out to a lot of creative to come in and create their artwork. So there's a whole lot, and hopefully, by if it's God's will, I will open another location elsewhere in Johannesburg. But right now, we are building on this space that we have here and make it a premium creative space.
Okay, George, and what's your advice to men all over Africa who are watching you, who would like to get into the entrepreneurship space, who like to be a photographer like you, but feel the daily struggles of being a man?
Yes, my advice I'll give to based on my experience would be to don't be afraid to pursue that passion, that itch that is there. But before you jump into it and make it a full-time endeavor, make sure that, say if somebody still has a regular job and they're trying to pursue a passion as a career, don't quit your regular job. Keep still hustling, juggle the two, find time to juggle the two, because at the end of the day, as men, our job is to provide and protect. And, we thrive, men thrive by working. Know that you are working and you're providing something to your family. So until your passion starts to generate more income than your regular job, don't quit.
All right, Joe, thank you so much for being with us here on Just for Men Africa. Really appreciate your time. We wish you all the best and we look forward to interviewing again in future.
Thanks, Lakan. I really appreciate you having me here. And thanks to your listeners for tuning in.
All right, Jordan. To all our listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, tell a friend who knows a friend about Just for Men Africa. And to the next one from George and I, all the way in South Africa, it's a be. Bye.
Bye.